Hello everyone and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. And for our second segment of today's show, we'll be talking about the top 5 pitchers. But before we get into that, I do want to remind you, as always, if you want to contribute and interact with the show a little bit more directly, avail yourselves of the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features. Even though I am leaving, I still want to shout out all my co-workers who have been doing fantastic things for other shows around the network in their own right. Go support them as well. A lot of new guys are going to be coming in, so go and show them your support as well. It's not just about, quote-unquote alum guys. These are guys who are established veterans with GSMC, and then we're going to be getting some new blood, so I appreciate all your support for not just my show at the network as well. But without further ado, let's jump into our second segment of today's show. Let's get into the pitching side of things in the MLB, looking at our top 5 pitchers. Now, this is probably the list that's going to get the most controversy out of a lot of you guys, a lot of skeptics potentially, but this is my personal list, and it's based on the foundation of growth among several of these players. A lot of these players are in fact younger guys, and I think that's the direction pitching is going to go. And since this is not an era where innings are going to be a huge factor in how we think about pitchers and pitching as that matters, but ultimately I feel that all of these guys have transcended the era they're in and could potentially be innings eaters for you as well. So without further ado, let's jump right into the top 5 pitchers in the MLB, in my opinion. Coming in at number 5, a guy who may, to some, have shown signs of regression in past years, made a big money move to the Arizona Diamondbacks. 6-year, $210 million deal. In fact, Corbin Burnes. This is someone who's been around, whether it was with the Orioles last year, whether it was the Brewers before, now with Arizona, and someone who a lot of people could see dropping out of this top 5, in my opinion. But here's the fact of the matter. I think that now he's on Arizona, he becomes their top pitcher. Nothing against Merrill Kelly and Brandon Pfaadt, but Corbin Burnes still has elite pure stuff, even though some might say he's regressing. Still ranking in the top 5 in the majors in terms of ERA with 2.92 ERA. It came 5th in Cy Young voting last year, so I'm not too worried about his regression. And if the Diamondbacks play well and they combine elite pitching with the power they have in their lineup, and most importantly, the youth they're bringing up, then I think this could be an astute signing for them. So Corbin Burnes is someone who, even though might slip out of the top 5 and maybe out of the top 10 in the upcoming years, still can bring a lot of value to this young Arizona Diamondbacks team. So that's why I still want to keep him in this top 5, to show that there could be value in experience, and Corbin Burnes has that in spades, one of the most experienced players on this list, so I can't leave him out, despite the fact, that a lot of you might be skeptical about his inclusion in the first place. Corbin Burnes comes in number 5. Here's where it kind of gets weird, right? Here's where we get a couple of youthful guys who are a little bit more perspective in how we're going to view them. And so I do want to remind you all that these are guys who could steadily improve. And so the fact that they're in my top 5 in the first place is quite incredible. And it just goes to show that they'll consistently improve and be in the top 5 for years to come. Some of these guys might fall out over the next couple of years, but some of these guys who are younger can remain in these ranks for the next 5 to 10 years if they're on the right track and maintain that right track. So at number 4, I'm going to go with Garrett Crochet. He switched Sox teams, going from the terrible Chicago White Sox to the more promising Boston Red Sox. In my opinion, deserved the move, and he was never going to have much success in Chicago anyways. So he, along with Walker Buehler, consist of a dynamic pair of pitchers for Boston that can deliver for you in terms of your rotation setup. And I think that Garrett Crochet really looks like someone who's going to explode even more in the MLB throughout the next couple of years, especially if the Boston Red Sox, with a promising farm system, can prove they can be competitive in that division. You talk about 209 batters in 146 innings last year, the highest strikeout rate of any pitcher with 100 or more innings. Now goes along with Walker Buehler to Boston and creates a pair of dominant pitchers that will, most importantly, challenge the offenses of the AL East more than you would think. And that's why I think that Garrett Crochet, even though he's a young guy, deserved this move. Because it's about the promise that the Boston Red Sox see in youthful players. And the fact that they're bringing up a lot of players in terms of the infield to their farm system and being able to acquire two young guys in Buehler and Garrett Crochet, I think it's very integral to how we're going to view them over the next couple of years, especially if they continue to contend in the AL East. That's why I wanted to include Garrett Crochet in this list, even though some might wait to see how he performs in that setup. I still choose to believe that Garrett Crochet has a bright future ahead of them, and his first season in Chicago was only the beginning of a prolific MLB career. So Garrett Crochet is number 4. Now number 3, a guy who I really respect, really has had a very intriguing career. Some would have called him a journeyman at certain points in his career. He was kind of wallowing with the Mets, never really fit into that rotation when there were still players like Harvey and Syndergaard there. And now that he's in Philly on the rival, really coming into his own, forming a dynamic partnership with Aaron Nola as one of the best pitcher tandems in all of the MLB, and that is Mr. Zach Wheeler. Last year, he got 4 out of 30 first-place votes and 25 second-place votes when he finished behind Chris Sale for the Cy Young Award. And I think that Zach Wheeler has shown that he's capable of winning a Cy Young. He's made 122 starts over the past 4 seasons. He has a 2.92 ERA in that span. He's averaged more than 6 innings per start, so we talked about how important innings are to some players in this era. So by going 6 innings, which is the threshold for a lot of these guys, proving that he has the longevity needed in big game settings. And he has an ERA plus over that time span of 141 as well. He was 4th in inning pitch last year, 200, and his ERA last year was the 3rd best as well. So Zach Wheeler is someone who has truly transcended what we thought he could be when he was still someone in the Mets struggling to get many games in that rotation. So now that he is someone who's such a high-profile pitcher, we can now start to view him as someone who can also be capable of bigger things. I don't know if those are Hall of Fame level things, but they're certainly capable of World Series things, so to speak. So that's why I think Zach Wheeler sits perfectly at number 3 here. And then these other 2 guys, I just think one of them, again, is a young player, has his whole career ahead of him, and just is looking to project a little bit better over the next couple of years than Zach Wheeler. And the number 1 guy is truly incredible in terms of how he mows down people consistently multiple times to the lineup. So in number 2, let's talk about Paul Skeens, and then we'll get into number 1, who a lot of people I don't think will necessarily be mad about. Paul Skeens at 2, though, might seem a little bit high for him, but listen to these stats. 170 strikeouts in 133 innings, an ERA plus of 2.14. Compare that to the elite pitchers of this past generation, Clayton Kershaw, Chris Sale, even the guy at number 1. None of them have had that number in their careers. They didn't even reach it last year. The 2 Cy Young winners, and Sale and the number 1 guy who we're going to talk about, while winning Cy Young awards. That just goes to show that Paul is someone who has Cy Young caliber talent and is someone who is outmatching and outpacing elite pitchers of bygone eras. Well, not necessarily that too long ago, but you get the idea. In terms of how much talent is showing up in his stats. And so that's why Skeens is someone who really deserves to be in this top 5, even though he's only going into his second year. And yes, the Pirates might not be an elite team like some of these other ones on this list, but still, really, really, really exciting young man to watch. And improve a small sample that can really transcend stats-wise. In terms of number 3 hitters in opposing lineups, some of the most important hitters in lineups, batted 115 against him. Only 1 extra base hit and 21 strikeouts. And that's incredible to behold for someone who's still kind of developing in this Pirates team. But for now, he's not above my number 1 guy in Tariq Skubal, who still remains, in my opinion, one of the best quote-unquote innings eaters of the modern era. Here's an incredible stat to compound that. A lot of the time, once you get used to a pitcher, the third time around, chances are you're more likely to get a hit once you reach that threshold. His third time through opposing lineups, Tariq Skubal has held opposing hitters to a .215 average. He's still only 28 years old. He got Scott Boras as his agent, and he's going to be commanding big money. And this is someone at the peak of his powers, right? This is someone that, for all intents and purposes, could remain in Detroit and make them contenders for years to come, even if they had this small ball aesthetic about them. But if he does make a big money move, I wouldn't be mad at it because he truly has the numbers to back him up. He has the Cy Young to back him up now, and he has the stats. Most importantly, the stats in important areas of pitching today. So going through the list, I don't think you can find someone who can consistently mow down opposing batters at the rate that Tariq Skubal can. And the stats prove it. And potentially a big contract coming up in his short-term future could prove it as well. So there you have my top 5. Corbin Burnes, Garrett Crochet, Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens, and a number 1, Mr. Tariq Skubal. But coming up next, we're going to be talking about the guys who take over for them, the relievers, the relief pitchers who I believe are going to be the best in the majors next season. We'll be right back with this short break to talk about them. I'm really excited about this one as well. But we'll be right back with this short break.
Looking for your daily fix